Hello, this is Patrick, one of the wild guys, with his wife. We're out doing some moose hunting, and this one is going to be to show you how to prepare the meat. By preparing the meat, we don't mean just butchering it, but getting it out of the woods, get it hung, the hide off, and the carcass cooled down, and also to making sure we got cheesecloth and it's protected for any kind of moisture or flies, and then getting it ready and in to be cut and wrapped to go into your freezer. If the weather is good and it's dry, we generally try to hang our moose, but you got to be careful not to hang it too many days because the grizzlies will smell it and they come in. They're interested too. As we get older, there'll probably be less moose videos as well because it's getting harder to look after them. We had a grizzly come in 4 times one night to take the head off our moose. You may recognize some of the areas that we've been hunting in, but we've hunted pretty well all across British Columbia. My wife and I used to cruise in many different parts of the world, but I got to tell you that the thing that I always look forward to was our hunting trip right here in British Columbia. We traveled with our truck and RV across the states in Northwest Territories, Yukon, Alaska, and British Columbia, but there was nothing that would ever surpass our 10, 12 days that we did hunting in the fall in October. It was the best time. Watching wild animals from your tree stand here in Canada has got to be the best. If you see a carving like this anywhere in British Columbia, it's probably a good place. We put our signature there. But you're going to have to look about 20 feet up the tree because that's where it's at. After a few years of tree stands, we left them home and we used the natural brush piles. And we made a little hole in them and where it was comfortable and waited for the moose. I built this moose caboose back in 1999. It served us well. My friend Bob was a sign painter. He did the sign painting on the moose mobile for us. Make sure you keep your meat hung and the cover over it so there's no rain or wet moisture on it and the flies off it. The meat is really important. We'll talk a lot about how to look after your meat after you get it home as well. We brought the moose in whole with the hide on to keep it clean, and also too we got the hide off the same day to cool it down properly. Some will be asking, how did you get the moose to the back of the truck, and then how did you get it loaded? We had a very long cable, so call it in long enough so you could catch it with your cable. Then we had a 3/4 sheet of plywood that laid at the bottom of our pickup box. We used it as a ramp and used a come-along to pull it in. This year in 2022, sat on top of a brush pile and called the moose in. He stopped on the road right behind the truck. This particular year we got a cow and a calf. My wife loved her 30-30 and really enjoyed using it. Sometimes it's hard to remember exactly which moose come from where. This is how most of the moose come into our meat pole. With hide was on. This one now the hide is off. We take it off fairly quickly after we get it in and hanging on the pole. I won't forget this moose. I was with my son-in-law and I had to draw for a mature bull. And I didn't sight my gun in because I thought, oh no, it's nothing wrong with that. Well, guess what? I did shoot the moose and I did get it, but not exactly where I wanted the bullet to go. So I learned to make sure my gun is sighted in well before actually the hunt. Once you get out of the woods and in more to where the farmland is, you're going to start to see other animals as well. In this particular case, we seen some coyotes here. We also see a number of deer, and sometimes the elk are in there, and we don't really have a lot of interest in getting deer or elk, but it's nice to see the animals. Just have to take a look and see what it is that he's interested in, I guess. There he is. Oh, looks like a hide off something. So, but he's a little bit nervous. He can see out across the field and the fence and see us on the road, and he doesn't like the fact that we're watching him. Well, we're not going to stay too long. We'll just take a little bit of video of the coyote and what he's up to. Sort of, he's curious about us, and I guess you could say that we're kind of curious about him as well. And I just wanted to thank you for coming along with our hunt. I spread it out over, we had a lot of material, but I spread it out over about a 20-year period. And we're going to move along with not only the ones that we did with our canoeing and rafting, but also too we're going to show you some of the lifestyle changes that we made, so that we were able to spend time out in the woods. And some of the most precious things that we have is certainly our environment, and also too our wild animals and the preservation of them. Next, we'll cover a lot of the lifestyle changes that we are making in order that we can continue, especially in the northern part of Canada, being able to enjoy the beauty that we have and the nature we have there. So we sold our home and my shop, and we've now went into a strata condominium high-rise, but it's freed us up a great deal to travel throughout the north, throughout Canada. We loved our home. My wife had a hair salon in the home, and I also had a shop in the back where I restored antique automobile. But it was time to make a change. We wanted to do more traveling, especially in the far north, and to see the animals that's out in the backwoods, and to get to know the north, and cover a number of the things, including the glaciers and the parks, and see all the animals. So we made a change, so we were able to do that. Up till now, we've not really said a lot about the actual cutting the moose, and grinding it and preparing it into steaks and roasts and hamburgers and stew meat for the freezer. It's great to have a good meat cutter, and we got one that we use out of Kamloops.
Well, this is Patrick Roy here, one of the wild guys, and I have my wife along with us. We've ventured out and starting to focus on more hunting right now, and then this is series 3, and we're going to be talking a lot about getting the moose out and getting it butchered and cut up and in our freezer for us to have some great meat. We wondered how the best way to get the moose out of the bush was, and in the past we pulled it frontwards, we've pulled them backwards. We tried to take them out by packing them out, and then in the end we found out that the best way to do it was to call the moose out. The moose is a lot stronger than us, and it's got a lot more energy in us. So we would just call them out, and hopefully we get them very close to our vehicle. And then we had a big cable we used many times when they didn't get that close, and we would take it the rest of the way out. So that is how that we were doing it. And the other thing I would want to say too is once we take and have the moose butchered, we'd leave the hide on and get it loaded and get it into camp and on the pole, and then we would take the hide off of the moose at that particular time, because you want the moose to cool down fairly fast. What we would do then is we would take and we would hang it so that the moose was quite a bit off the ground, and his nose would be about that far from the ground. And what we would do is we would spend some time working and cleaning on the moose and making sure that there was no rain or water got on him or other animals or birds. And what we would do at that time is keep watching his nose, and every day the nose would get a little closer and a little closer and a little closer until it was right down touching the ground. We knew that the moose stretched out a lot and he was going to be a lot more tender. We didn't want to leave him there too long, because the bears and the grizzlies, they like to come in. Matter of fact, we had a grizzly come in 4 times on one moose one night, and my wife's moose, she lost the head off her moose. But anyways, otherwise we got the rest of the moose. So the other thing that we'd like to talk about is the meat that we have in front of us right now. Here's our favorites, our hamburgers here. And a lot of times people will say, what do you put in your moose meat? Well, the best thing to put in your moose meat is moose meat. Nothing more. You can put some spices in there, like some pepper, some salt, and some other spices, but don't put any fat, whether it's pork or beef or whatever, because it doesn't keep as long as it would without it. So what do we put in our moose meat? We put moose meat in it. And the hamburgers here that you see will stay the same size after you cook them. Certainly not like the hamburgers you get in the store that will shrivel all up on you, or they have various different chemicals that they have in their food that they're eating. These are strictly organic. And as for the moose roast, you can't get a better meat. I always say, if it's my last meal, I want to have a moose roast, mashed potatoes and gravy. They're the best. We also have stew meat that we use for spaghetti and all kinds of other things that we use the stew meat in. And this is the ground, I wouldn't call it ground beef, ground moose here that we use. So we are very, very happy with that. If you come and we have a meal out of moose, and many times we'll have moose that can last us 3 years. There's no best before date on those. You can just take and pull them out of the freezer, and they'll last for a long time, as long as you keep the fat out of them. And so then you can have a good memory of the moose hunt that we've had. We've had many, many moose hunts. It's been some of our best trips we've had, is spending somewhere between 2 weeks and 10 days into the bush. So it's been really something we look forward to. We're getting older. We won't be able to continue doing it. Looks like the moose are getting bigger and heavier. I'm not sure why, but it's probably because we're getting older and we're not as strong as we used to be. But we'll cover some other issues after this because we still plan on going into the bush, into the north, and seeing the wild animals and the nature and all the things in our environment. So I just wanted to give you a picture of what moose is like. It's your best meat.
We have actually covered a number of glaciers throughout Canada and Alaska. We'll be doing that next, and then we'll be going to give you information on how to live in a strata condominium and the things you should know before you purchase it, and yes, before the first AGM. That's coming up after this. I have did a lot of HVAC work in our brand new condominium, and I've got a lot of information that I can provide for you on setting up a council, and also to the people that you would want to have on your council, and things as well as a depreciation report, things that will be important to you and will help us along the way to have many more videos of actual events in Alaska, in the Northwest Territories, in the Yukon, and also too in British Columbia. Many of the new homes, and yes, stratas, are sealed fairly tight, much like the earlier R2000 homes. And you need to get air in them, and also if you want to get rid of humidity, you'll have to deal with that. I will cover a lot of that for you as well. So watch for the Wild Guys coming up next.